Welcome back to a new episode of the Shout at the Devils podcast. I am Justin Brady, aka Devils Fanatics, and I write for Jersey Sporting News. And I'm here with my co-host Daniel Amoia, aka devils.report on Instagram, and he writes for the Hockey Writers. And we have a good episode for you guys today, actually a positive one because the Devils have won a game. It's nice to come on here and actually talk about a Devils win for a change. I feel like the last few episodes, it's been kind of negative and sad because the Devils haven't been playing the best hockey as of late, and obviously everybody knows that the Devils are 5 points out of a playoff spot currently, so they're battling for their playoff hopes. They're still alive. They're very much alive, but you know what? The Devils get a big win in San Jose. They take down the Sharks by a score of 7-2, and this was really just a complete team effort that the Devils got, which is something they haven't gotten in a while. And Daniel, before I bring you in here, I just want to highlight Nico Dawes had a big momentum swing in this game. The Devils were down 1-0 to nobody's surprise. Because what is it now, Daniel? 43 out of
It
59?
is 43. I think it's 16. I'll tell you right now. 43 and 59. Yes.
Yeah, and you tweeted something that it's
It
the
it it ties the worst mark through 59 games, giving up the first goal in NHL history. They share that with the 1992 Ottawa Senators. That Senators team went 10-70-4.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And they showed a stat on MSG yesterday. And to all the teams that they were compared with, who have given up a lot of goals up until that point in a season, they were all like last place in the league or near last place in the league. And somehow the Devils are still scratching and clawing for a playoff spot. And I don't know if that says like more about the team or like I don't know. Obviously, it's not a good thing that they're falling behind 1-0 every single game. It's a bad thing, but give them credit. They're still in it and that's pretty impressive to say the least.
Yeah,
But
I just want to make a comparison real quick. They were talking about the Sharks last night. San Jose has 4 wins all season when they've trailed in a game. The Devils have almost 20. I mean, so
mm,
it's like you said, it's mixed emotions because it's basically historically bad, the frequency in which they're giving up the first goal of the game. But I'd love to see the stat where how many times the Devils score the next goal after they give up the first goal, because I bet that's almost like 80%.
that's a good stat to
It,
know.
it's just very strange. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You could say it falls on coaching, possibly. I don't know. We've talked about it so much. I don't want to speculate or even get into that. But they need to be better if they're going to be pushing for a playoff spot because, like I said, historically bad. When you're chasing teams that are 10-70-4 in that category, that's not a good thing. It's remarkable. So that needs to change.
Yeah, and talking about scoring the next goal after falling behind 1-0, the Devils did that exactly. And a big reason for that was surprisingly Nico Dawes. He's somebody who probably doesn't get enough credit in this game because he made a big save on Sharks forward Barbanov because Luke Hughes, the Sharks are up 1-0 to begin the second period. Luke Hughes has a horrible turnover in their own zone. Does like some like spin around pass without looking, goes right to a Sharks forward. And then it gets to Barbanov, who's wide open right in front of the net. And Nico Dawes, credit to him, he stays composed, he stays calm, and makes a big pad save. And it could have been 2-0. And if the Devils fall behind 2-0, who knows how that game would have ended up. It could have ended up very differently. But then right after Dawes makes that save, 35 seconds later, Jesper Bratt scores off of a great feed from Timo Meyer. 35 seconds after that, Jack Hughes scores on a breakaway. So the Devils went total 360. It could have went from 2-0 Sharks, but it went to 2-1 Devils. And from there on, the Devils didn't look back. They scored 7 unanswered goals, and they won that game by a score of 7-2 over the Sharks. So credit to Nico Dawes. He made 29 out of 31 saves in his performance, and he had a plus 1.53 goals saved above expected, according to Money Puck. So he had a great game. We need more games out of this from Nico, and it definitely helps that he got a break this past weekend because since Schmidt played against the Lightning, and he wasn't even that bad against Tampa, but probably ideally you want Nico Dawes to start every game going forward here, but Nico definitely needed a break because the Devils were putting him in a lot, and he definitely needed a break. So good for him, and it seemed like he got the break and he came in fresh, new, and he was ready to go for that game. So credit to Nico Dawes. Great game by him. Um, I want to give credit to Nico Hischier. I mean, he's on a tear as of late, Daniel. 17 points in his last 13 games. What do you make of Nico's game
I
as of
mean,
late?
in times like this is where your captain needs to step up, and that's exactly what Nico Hischier has done. He's fully healthy. We know he's great on the defensive side of the puck, second in Selke voting last season, but now we know what he can do offensively. Last season he was just under a point per game, and now that he's playing over a point per game in this recent stretch, it's no surprise. He's not this flashy player. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He's just a very, very good NHLer who basically does everything right. And we know he's frustrated. We've seen some of the interviews where you could tell he's disappointed. Right before the All-Star break, he said, quote, "I'm embarrassed" with where the team was standing at that moment. So he's done exactly what a captain has to do and stepped up big time. 4 points for him last night. That's what you need to see out of your captain. A true leader, always says the right thing. He's always there. He's very vocal within the locker room. There's a reason they made him the captain so early in his tenure as a Devil, and we're seeing exactly why right now. So props to Nico.
Yeah, I find it crazy that Devils fans or just NHL fans in general are calling him out and questioning whether he's a good captain or not. I mean, you can't really call out a guy who was coming off an injury back in November, and obviously he's not going to be playing the best hockey that he can, but give him some time. And ever since January, he's really just been lights out. He's been a great player, two-way player, and that's what we get out of that's what we want to get out of Nico Hischier, a fully healthy Nico Hischier. So he's on a bit of a tear right now, and that showed last night. 4 points, 1 goal, 3 assists, making plays happen. I credit to Nico. He's leading this team by example, especially as of late. So great to see that from Nico. And another player that really stood out, we talked about Jack Hughes last episode, Daniel. And I said, I feel like we haven't gotten a Jack Hughes type of game in a while. And I feel like this game against the Sharks was the first time I could say this was a signature Jack Hughes game. 1 goal, 2 assists for him. What do you make out of Jack Hughes' game last night?
I mean, it's definitely cautious optimism for me because, again, we do need to take into account that it is the San Jose Sharks, a
Of
team
course.
that is the worst in the entire NHL. With that being said, Jack certainly had his legs last night, and that's a great sign. It's probably because I just wrote an article about how he's underperforming, so naturally he's going to come out and be flying. But in all seriousness, you just see the way Jack is able to take over a game when he has those legs. We know the caliber of player he is. You don't even with how good the power play was early on this season, you don't get 20 points in 9 games by accident. You have to be a dynamic player to put up those numbers. And Jack Hughes last night, it was like he couldn't be touched. His scouting report when he got drafted, there was a scout who said something along the lines of, even if you were a bird on the ice, you still can't catch him. And that's a caliber of player Jack Hughes is when he's on, and we know he's been playing through something. Lindy Ruff confirmed that. We were speculating in the past, but Lindy Ruff confirmed Jack is playing through something right now. And he even used the word obviously. So everyone knows it, but hopefully it's something minor Jack was able to put past him, or maybe just because it was against a San Jose defense and he had more confidence, whatever it may be. Jack Hughes looked like Jack Hughes last night. And what do you have? 3 points, goal and 2 assists, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something he has to build off of. I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, Jack Hughes is back because he had a great performance against the worst defense in the National Hockey League. But it's a great sign nonetheless. Jack, what he needs to do is build off this, just like the entire team. But I'm not going to be sitting here because we've talked about the roller coaster this season. Oh, it's so over. They're so back. It's so over. I'm done with that. All I need to say is that they need to build off this. Will they? That's for them to determine.
Yeah.
But the writing is on the wall. They're not out of it at all. Somehow, it feels like that. It feels every time they're out of it, they rope you back in. They are what now in the standings? 5 points behind Philly, but with a game in hand. Um, so we'll get more into that. But bottom line is Jack Hughes is he's back. Well, he was back
Hopefully,
last night, let me say.
hopefully he's back.
Hopefully he's back, but it's very refreshing to see him take over a game like that because he hasn't He just hasn't lately.
Yeah,
So it's refreshing. He's not back fully. I won't say that currently, but like I said, very refreshing to see that.
definitely. And he looked very confident. Probably the most confident I've seen. I feel like we've seen him since returning from injury. So we need more of that from Jack Hughes. He's our superstar player. He's the player that we rely on pretty oftenly. So we need him to really just keep this going, especially Friday night against the Ducks, which we will get into shortly here. But something I want to highlight in this game, this was a complete team effort against the San Jose Sharks. Yes, I know. Look, the Sharks, we know they're not a good team. But at the end of the day, they're still an NHL team. They're not the Sharks are a very fight. They're not an easy team to beat. I don't want to say like just because of their record right now.
No team in the NHL is easy to beat.
Exactly. And previously to this game, they were 4-5-1. So obviously they're able to win some games.
I
And
mean, they beat the Devils at
they
the
beat
Rock.
exactly. They
They
beat the
beat the
Devils.
Rangers a couple weeks ago.
Exactly. So can't I don't want to take this away from the Devils. They won and they got the 2 points. Just because it's against the Sharks doesn't mean it's not a good win. It's a good win. That's something that the Devils could really build off of. And they got a complete team effort last night, getting offense from all areas. Three defensemen, not named Luke Hughes or Simone Nemec scored. Brendan Smith, Colin Miller, and Kevin Ball all had goals. And that's just crazy to say. And there were three consecutive goals from them as well. That's awesome to see. You want to get goals from guys like that. Sometimes you're gonna need goals from guys like that. And it's just the reality. That was the eighth time in Devils history where the Devils have gotten goals from three different defensemen in a game. And it's from the three most unlikely guys you would expect to score to begin with. So that's awesome to see. And obviously the top guys really chipping in last night. I feel like the top four signature guys on this team, Daniel, Jack Hughes, Jesper Bratt, Nico Hischier, and Timo Meier. Those are like your top four guys. I'll say obviously you could include Toffoli in there, but when you're building a team going forward, this like for the Devils in their future, those are the four guys that they're building around. And I feel like this is like the first time, really all season, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong when I say this. I feel like we got four, like all four of them played a really strong game. They all contributed. All of them had 2 points or more. I think they combined for 11 points between all four of them in last night's win. It's really good to see. They really need their top players to step up. Dawson Mercer got a goal that hopefully needs to help him build his confidence because he's really been slacking a lot as of late. So hopefully that's something that he could build on. But really, I feel like the Devils played cohesively, had a lot of chemistry, moving the puck well. That's what you like to see. The Devils haven't done that pretty well since maybe like back in November or December. So it's nice to see that. Very refreshing to see that their offense they're still able to move the puck well. And even the power play. I know the power play's been struggling. Like even yesterday, the power play was pretty good when they got their opportunities. It just happened to be Mackenzie Blackwood, who was just, of course, had to be amazing against us. And unfortunately, he got an injury. And honestly, that might be a big reason why the Devils won because it looked like he was on pace for an amazing game. So the Devils may have lucked up, but complete team effort. The Devils need more of this if they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have to mention that Kaapo Kähkönen came into that game cold after Blackwood was shutting out the Devils, and that completely changed things. Some of the goals Kähkönen gave up were pretty soft, especially some of the defenseman goals. So you want to give the Devils credit, but like I said, cautious optimism because again, it is the San Jose Sharks, and you still got to come out hard. You can't lollygag against a team like the Sharks and expect to win. You can't against any team in the NHL, but that is the reality that they are going to have to continue to prove it because in all honesty, I feel like the Tampa Bay game was a game where, and I don't love being negative, but it's the truth that they needed the Tampa Bay game so bad and they just completely came out flat. Three shots in the third period, like the urgency still isn't there. So yes, it's great that they beat the Sharks, but they're gonna have big tests ahead of them, and so far they haven't shown me anything to prove that they're able to conquer those big tests. So we could see they should be very grateful that they're in this position currently. I also, not to whine a little bit, but loser points are kind of crazy. The Devils are 5 points behind the Flyers, but only have one less win than them and have a game in hand. Same the Devils have six more wins than the Islanders, but only two more points than them. It's kind
That's
of crazy how the loser point plays such a big role in the standings. And I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, that's you can't whine about it, can't complain about it. Those are the rules. But it's just crazy how teams get rewarded for losing better than other teams. But at the same rate, you can make the argument that the Devils have gotten a good share of wins in overtime because they're such a good overtime team. So it kind of goes both ways. Anyway, not trying to complain. It's just crazy how that affects the standings so much this time of year. Someone I know you mentioned Kevin Ball scored a goal. I want to mention Kevin Ball has played some of his best hockey recently.
he has been.
That's been another thing that's very refreshing for the Devils. Bill Spalding just tweeted, I know plus minus isn't the be all end all, but Kevin Ball's recent plus minus, the month of February, plus 10 in the entire month. Compare that to Luke Hughes, who's, I believe, a minus 11 this month, who is someone I also just wrote about. That's a what 21 goal swing between the two left-handed defensemen there. As for Luke, I really can't fault the guy. The most games he ever played in college were 41. And you can see if you look up his 10 game moving average in terms of game score, which is an advanced statistic, he was basically like trending upwards the entire season. And then about 15 games ago, he just went on a straight decline. And that's just rookie struggles. That happens. It's tough to acclimate to an 82 game NHL schedule, especially when you're a guy like Luke who's a little smaller, gets bounced around a lot. Props to him for playing in every single game and fighting through all these big hits and stuff like that. But you can see it's taking his toll on him. He just looks off right now a little bit. And the offense hasn't really been there too much for him either. That's not saying he's gonna be bad. That's not it's just a rookie struggle. Most guys go through it, and that's what Luke's going through right now.
Yeah, it's really with Luke is his turnovers, the turnovers in their own zone. And it just can't happen. And I know he's a rookie, but at some point it just has to click. You don't make a spin around behind the back pass without even looking to the Sharks. That's what happened yesterday, and the Sharks almost scored, as I previously mentioned earlier on in the episode. You don't make a play like that. And I know he's a rookie and you have to learn from that, but I mean that's kind of just common sense. You don't do that. I don't know. He's had pretty costly turnovers throughout the season, and yeah, I feel like definitely as the season has gone on, he's definitely declined a little bit. Ever since the All-Star break, he just hasn't looked the same. The offense is not there at all, as you said, Daniel. It's just not there. And I don't know if he's tired because I mean yesterday he was flying out there. I don't know if you saw
Yeah.
he went 24.19 miles per hour, which is the highest mark among all defensemen in the NHL this season at one point when he went coast to coast and had a shot attempt on Kakinen and didn't go in. But I don't know. I don't know if it's tiredness. I just think I don't know what it is with Luke Hughes right now, but he has to figure it out because we're going to rely on him. As Lindy Ruff has said previously, the Devils have what they have now, and they have to deal with that. And they need Luke Hughes to step up a little bit. I know he's a rookie. That's a lot of pressure to put on him, but he just needs to be better defensively. But I want to touch on someone, Daniel. Timo Meyer has been really a better player as of late. Yeah, I know the goals are still not coming, and I think that's a big problem because yeah, we did extend him to score goals, but I feel like he's just looks much better. He looks faster, looks stronger out there. Being paired with Jesper Bratt and Nico Hischier definitely benefits him. I think so at least.
Well, I think just him not being on the third line, no matter who he's
Of
with,
course.
because I mean, no shade to guys like Curtis Lazar, but they're not exactly like play driving elite playmakers that you want to put your almost $9 million man next to. And Timo Meyer, first of all, why he hasn't been on the top power play unit astounds me because that's you saw him even with the Devils last season after they acquired him have success on the power play, and this season they just haven't really put him up there much, and he's still chipped in regardless. He scored on the power play last night. It got overturned because 30 seconds earlier the zone entry was a millimeter offsides, but
So annoying.
but regardless, you want to take those moral victories with Timo because he seemed like he's so close. I know my buddy James Nichols, he says the same thing all the time. He's like Timo just looks so close. But he just hasn't been able to put it together. But you see the dominance in his game. You see it. And he's a big body. When he's on, he's on. We saw that in the Montreal game. And it really seems like Timo's finally starting to turn a corner. I want to compare it to Dougie Hamilton's first season as a Devil.
The
It's a
perfect
season,
example.
it's a season that's kind of forgotten about. Dougie dealt with some injuries and he was okay, but not definitely not elite. Like his production just wasn't there. And then the next season he was healthy and he took off, ended up, I believe, top five in Norris voting. He was a stud last season, a big part of that franchise record season. So that's what Timo has. That's a great comparison this year because he's been in and out of the lineup. He's dealt with stuff. You could tell a lot of times he was playing through something and he just wasn't 100%. He wasn't as physical. You could see in the hit statistic, his numbers dropped off a lot. And lately they're starting to come back up. So it's hard to fault it. Like I see all these people like talking about, oh, time to buy out Timo Meyer and all this stuff, and this is the man we gave this money. Like, relax. It's been a few months. It's been injury plagued. The whole team has underperformed. There's been other issues. He's been buried on the third line. He hasn't been given power play time. There's just
Yeah.
too many variables there to blame Timo Meyer for really anything. And you look at his underlying numbers the past many seasons, Timo Meyer has been one of the best overall like guys in the league in terms of underlying numbers. Like if anything, you could say his 40 goal season last season, he could have even scored a little more with how his advanced numbers looked. But this season they're way down. And you don't just go from like 90th percentiles, 100th percentiles to like some of the worst in the league if you're not fighting through something. Like that just doesn't happen. There might be a slight drop off, but Timo's drop off clearly coincides with his injuries this season. And like I said, we see him finally turning that corner. He's always held his head high, always been positive, always carried himself very well, been kind of a leader in that clubhouse, it seems. And to see things finally starting to come along, that's not just big for him, but big for the Devils. And even if he's not fully able to grasp his footing this season, I think next season we're looking at a big season out of Timo Meyer because the the tools are still there. You see the way he's able to take on games, and that's what he did last night. That's what he did against Montreal.
Yeah, just imagine if he's able to just get on a goal streak here. I mean, it would help the team so much. So I feel like it's, as you mentioned before, I feel like he's right there. I feel like if he's able to just put a few goals together across over the course of 2, 3 games, it's just gonna become natural at that point, and he's gonna go on a bit of a goal streak, I think. And a lot of people say that the beginning of the Devils' downfall, whatever they want to call it, began when the Devils traded for Timo Meyer. Those are the exact same fans that were really begging, "We want Timo, we want Timo." And the thing is, the Devils wouldn't have been where they were last season, and they probably wouldn't have beaten the Rangers, even though Timo Meyer didn't record a point. Timo Meyer was a big time player over the course of that last 20 games of the season and in the playoffs. He was a great player for them. He came up clutch many occasions for them. So I don't want people to say that Timo Meyer hurt the team. The Timo Meyer made the team better last season.
No,
And
I I remember us saying Timo Meyer had the greatest 7 game playoff series for anyone who didn't score a point.
he did.
I mean, he completely got under the Rangers' skin, especially Igor Shesterkin. I mean, he was a menace the entire playoff series, and yeah, he didn't finish his chances, which he created plenty of. But he's a huge reason they won that series. And even in Carolina, he chipped in with a few goals. He was starting to really chip in offensively as well as physically, and he was playing hurt even then. So
Yeah, nah. The only thing for Timo right now is he just has to finish his chances more. And we saw that last night in San Jose. Unfortunately, it didn't count. Just need to see more of that. And if he's able to string some goals together, it's gonna be really beneficial for the Devils going forward this season. If they can
yeah,
get a Timo
and
Meyer just scoring, I mean, oh God, that's what they signed him for. That would be awesome.
And like I said, it's a lot easier to finish those chances when you're able to play alongside guys like Nico Hischier and Jesper Bratt, who
Of
you
course.
know are going to be putting the puck on your stick. So, like I said, no shade to guys like Curtis Lazar who have been great pieces, or Chris Tierney who have been solid pieces for the Devils and fulfilled their roles, but Timo Meyer needs to be. I mean, you're paying him as such. He's performed as such in the past, so it's time to put him and keep him on the top line
Yeah.
because I think it was the Tampa Bay game, he started on the top line. After 5 minutes, he was dropped down to the third line. Like it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. So he needs to be there to stay, and especially now that it seems like he's starting to be fully healthy and take over games, you need to let him ride it out, even if they have one bad game. And this goes for anything, because I do not like personally that Lindy Ruff has jumbled the line so much this season. You have to let guys figure it out. You need chemistry, because even if they were to make the playoffs somehow, continuing to play like this, they're gonna have zero chemistry come playoff time because no line has played more than like 20 games with each other all season, I don't believe.
Yeah,
So
I think the only one was Palat, Heisha, Brett, and now
yeah,
they're
and
not together
and
anymore.
they still haven't played that much, maybe 25 games. Like
Yeah,
we're at almost game 60, so
it was like 27 games. That's it.
yeah. So
Ridiculous.
that needs to change. Timo needs to be on the top line. And on the top power play, as we Brian Novozinski of NJ.com said that last night. He mentioned that he asked Lindy Ruff, like, is it seems like Timo's getting healthier. Is it time for him to stay there? And Ruff said something along the lines of we need to continue to have those conversations and evaluate the power play and see where to go from there. So we'll see what happens, but I really don't think there's an option. And he's a big body. You could put him in front of the net. You could dig away at pucks. Look what he did in Nashville, that game-winning goal. Just a gritty, dirty goal. That's what Timo Meyer can do. I mean, he could get under the opponent's skin. And I feel like because of his injuries, people forgot about what Timo Meyer brings to the table. He's just kind of been there. But that narrative can change very quickly if Timo's playing the way he has lately.
Definitely. And looking forward here, the Devils have two more games left on this California road trip. They take on the Anaheim Ducks Friday night and the Kings Sunday afternoon. Two games that the Devils have to win. Plain and simple. There's other teams around them that are winning games. They got to keep on winning games. They got to keep up pace. And especially a game like against the Ducks. The Ducks are on the second half of a back-to-back Friday night. You got to take advantage of that. The Devils have to win that game. No excuse. They can't drop the ball. They have they're coming off a great win in San Jose. Build on from it. And I feel like Daniel, we've said this a lot throughout the season. Build on from it, and they never do it. They got to do it now. Otherwise, no playoffs this year. So this has to be the start of something special. They have to start stringing wins together. They have to eclipse a 3-game win streak. They have to eclipse it if they want to make the playoffs. So hopefully that started last night. We will see. Looking at the standings right now, the Devils are 5 points out of a wild card spot behind Tampa Bay. They have 2 games in hand. It would have been awesome if they had won that game against Tampa because they would have been only 3 points out with 2 games in hand. So that oh wait no, it would have been like two. I don't
One,
know. It
I
would be
think
like
they'd be 1 point
it would be
if
one
if
point.
they beat Tampa.
It would have been 1 point because of the 4 point
Yeah,
swing.
yeah.
So that would have changed everything. Unfortunately, they lost. So they still have an uphill battle in front of them. The Flyers, they're right there. Devils have a game in hand, 5 points behind them. Detroit, they're hot right now. So I don't know if they're gonna ever get to
Nah,
Detroit,
they're
but
not catching Detroit.
I don't think they will either. Philly and Tampa, those are your two most likely scenarios if the Devils were to make the playoffs. Just got to keep on winning games. Don't worry about what the other teams are doing right
Hmm.
now. Worry about us. We have to string wins together. If we string wins together, they're gonna make the playoffs this season. If they're able to get on a win streak and start winning like maybe like 8 out of 10 games in this next stretch, they will make the playoffs. But they just got to do that first. So we'll
Yeah.
see what happens. I just want to say something. I'm gonna give you a hot take here. I know this statement means nothing at all if the Devils don't make the playoffs, but if let's say they do make the playoffs, whoever is facing them, I'd be scared as hell. I do not want to face the Devils if I'm like a number one seed or top seed in the Eastern Conference right now. Because the Devils, even though, yeah, I know they haven't proved much to us that they can play on a consistent basis. But if they're able to figure it out in these last 20 so games this season, they could be a team that could just go all the way from that last wildcard spot or last metropolitan spot. They could be like the Florida Panthers of last season. It's a hot take, obviously. I can't say definitely that's gonna happen, but I feel like the possibility is there. But obviously, this statement, what I'm saying right now, means nothing if they don't make the playoffs. So we gotta just take it one game at a time. Anaheim up next, must win.
Yeah, I don't think I don't agree with that at all.
That's fine. That's fine. You
I
don't have to
I
agree with that.
I just think there's too many variables. Even if a few things go right, there's just too much in the equation. Is Luke Hughes gonna magically be able to overcome his acclimation to the schedule? Is Simone Nemet's gonna continue to play at an elite level because he hasn't lately. He's shown some struggles as a rookie. Is Kevin Ball gonna and John Marino both gonna continue to be able to be dominant forces? Are they gonna get consistent goaltending? Nico Dawes has been good, but not great. You need great in the playoffs. Is Jack Hughes gonna be healthy? Is Timo Meyer gonna be healthy? Are they both gonna be able to produce well? Is Nico Hischier gonna be able to continue to
It's a
produce points?
lot of question, a
I
lot of
could go on,
questions.
and I feel like there's too much, and none of it has been consistent for more than a few
Exactly.
game stretch the entire season. So unless the Devils were to put together some insane run and get confidence and things would just work out and
That's what I'm saying. If that were
maybe a
to
little
happen,
miracle too. I mean,
look,
it would be a miracle.
if
At this point, I'm not even very sure they're making the playoffs. I believe, according to Money Puck, it's only around like a 18% chance. Like it's very unlikely that they do make the playoffs. That's the hole they've dug themselves. So I don't even want to get into that. I just think that Anaheim is a must-win game against on a back-to-back against a team that's not very good. And I think even LA, like you have if you're gonna even have a shot at the playoffs, you got to find ways to pull out those big wins against teams that are around your level. Any team that's around their level or worse than them, they should be beating. Otherwise, they don't deserve to be in the playoffs.
and they've shown that they could be good teams. The top three teams in the league this season, the Bruins, Canucks, and I believe the Panthers. Yeah, the Panthers. They've beaten all three of those teams at some point this season. They have the capability to beat these top teams, but can they do it on a consistent basis?
Yeah,
No
exactly.
consistency, Daniel, and it's just the truth, and that's what's haunted the Devils season. They're not consistent, but if they can get on a consistent streak of winning, the Devils have a good shot of making the playoffs, and who knows what could happen come playoff time. It's not like the NBA where it's all predictable and stuff like that. Oh
Mhm.
yeah, definitely this year the Warriors are going to go to the NBA Finals versus the Cavaliers. It's not like that. Hockey, anything can happen. 2010, the Flyers were the last seed in the Eastern Conference. They went all the way that year. 2012, the Kings went all the way that year as the eighth seed in the Western Conference. They beat the Devils in the 2012 Stanley Cup Finals. They dominated through every team they played that year. And then we saw it this past year with the Florida Panthers. Nobody had them winning against the Boston Bruins. Literally nobody. I know what optimism I'm giving right now is very, 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 very unlikely. But know what? Trying to give some hope to some people listening. Take it how you want.
Yeah.
I'm gonna remain hopeful as the season goes on, unless the Devils really just drop the ball. But you know what? Stay hopeful, Devils fans. The season's not over yet. We still got what 23 games left. Let's just take it game by game. Hopefully the Devils win Friday, and then we'll go on from there.
Yeah, 24 games actually. So
Okay, awesome.
we could talk about all that when the Devils show that they can string together some consistent wins. I mean, they've won 30 of 59 games. Their goal differential is -7. They're like I said, there's just way too many question marks. And after the Tampa Bay game, I still don't believe that they have the tools to be able to make a push this season. That's not saying their window's over. It's not saying the Devils' downfall started when they signed Timo Meyer. It's just saying this season, I don't see it. And hey, I wouldn't mind being wrong, but right now they just haven't proven it to me. And one victory over the San Jose Sharks is not going to be enough to swing that for me. So,
Yep. Yep, they have to prove it to all of us right now. They have to get on a win streak, plain and simple. So, thank you guys all for listening to today's episode. We appreciate all your support. Last episode was absolutely amazing, did great viewership wise. So, we appreciate all of your support and love and feedback. So, please keep it up. And we will have an episode out for you guys after the California road trip. So, hopefully, we come on here and we're pretty happy about the Devils winning 3 games in a row. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm getting ahead of myself now, but let's hope when we come on here next week, it's about that. So thank you guys all. Let's go, Devils. Peace out.
yeah, they got to prove it. Peace.
Thank you for listening to Shout at the Devils by your hosts, Justin Brady and Daniel Amoia. As always, let's go Devils, baby! Woo!